So I've been sick. That's why I haven't even been recording that many episodes. But now that I'm kind of recovering, I feel like I'm going to start obviously getting back in and really locking in. And then it's January anyways. So really, I should be locking in anyways. You know what I mean? I feel like, I don't know, like in a way, how many episodes really have I done for the year so far? It's obviously been like 2, I believe. Yeah, it's been like 2 or 3 so far. Well, 4 actually. Yeah, it's been 4. Um, but obviously, what I'm gonna try to do, anyways, now as a challenge for myself, is to just do an episode a day. Because there's so many episodes also that are in the drafts that haven't been recorded yet. So obviously, I have to get back on track to do all of that stuff. So yes, that's our intro. Welcome back to Cine Shows. Today we're going to be discussing Poor Things. I also actually, so again, the episode has started yet, but I also want to like make more like recordings this year too. That is my goal. Like, I think in the way of how I got my podcast mic, and I really kind of want to do a lot of clips. So in a way, like, okay, it's not like, oh yeah, I don't take Shinny so seriously. I do. Like, I love to give time to it, and like obviously take time out of my day to talk about something that I really enjoy. Do you get it? But obviously, I mean, it would just be fun to really, use podcast clips, use different, just talk about different stuff. And also, I guess when I say do clips, like obviously just use my TikTok account more. Like, it's so funny because obviously I know that some listeners follow me on there, but obviously, like, I guess my TikTok is just for fun. Like, generally it's so funny. Like, when you think about how, this is my podcast account, but really that account is generally just used for laughs and bants, and like sometimes some film related stuff as well. But it's like film related, plus also, and sometimes I just post about the films that I'm watching, like just for little things like that. But I kind of feel like this year anyways, it should probably be more, business oriented, like just as a way to continue to build the to build the show, build the community. And also, funny thing is, I feel like Cine Shows has been growing a lot as well, which is very weird. Like, I'm adjusting to that, but I mean in the way that I remember starting out like really low, like again, like I was on like 30, and like now there's like 96, and I was like, wow, that is very scary. So that generally means, I feel like when your I guess base grows, it feels like, you want to make sure that people will continue to tune in, and people will continue to come back, like, but I mean, it's also good to, I guess, create and not think about that, but I think you also want to make sure you are keeping it as is, and then also improving. But yeah, okay, that's it now. Now I'm gonna talk about Poor Things for real. So obviously, I feel like Poor Things is such a great film, and obviously this film has the leading lady, Emma Stone. Let's dance. That's actually right. That's my probably favorite Emma Stone line, like of her just being herself, not like, not as her acting, but just, her as a celeb, her as a person. That line makes me laugh so much. And obviously it's funny because I generally think when I watched Poor Things for the first time, well, I watched it twice. Because obviously I watched it in cinema, and then I watched it at home. Like, I feel like it is my favorite Emma Stone role. Like, I mean, obviously there's Mia, of course, because I really do love La La Land. Like, please, that film, of course, is a horror movie, which is obviously what, you know what I mean? Horror movies that obviously I think it's funny, like, that's one of my favorite genres anyways, actually. Like, when you call a movie a horror movie, but obviously it's actually a romance film, but it's made horrific by the way that the film is, and the way that it ends as well. And obviously La La Land's one of those. It's very special. I rewatch La La Land a lot of the time, so that's what's so crazy. You guys will be like, oh, so you like pain? Yes. You could say that. Do you know what I mean? We could debate that I might do because that's what I mean. But I also think with La La Land again, I think La La Land has a very great soundtrack as well. So I think that is why it's probably quite easy to rewatch it. Even though, like, do you know what I mean? Even though you already know the ending, you already know the ending and you know how it's gonna end. But I do really think like that was the thing for me with La La Land. And I didn't know, of course, when you first watch the film, you don't necessarily know it's gonna be a musical, but it's like the musical thing doesn't even deter you. Like it doesn't even stop you. I just mean like when you hear all the songs, like it makes you like it more. Like honestly, and I think my favorite song from La La Land is either for the Fools Who Dream, and then also yeah, City of Stars. And I like, oh my gosh, with City of Stars, I love, of course, when Mia and Sebastian sing it, but I also like City of Stars, the humming version as well. Do you get what I mean? Both of those. So literally, like, the La La Land soundtrack is literally a no-skip soundtrack to me, and it will be like, you know what I mean? Well, like, it will be played in my future home. Like, I'm saying right now, like, I will generally bang it out. Like, people will be like, oh, do you listen to musical soundtracks in your spare time? Yes. Like, what do you mean? I'm gonna watch the film one time and then forget about the soundtrack? No. I'm gonna be playing that all day, every day. And I'm not bothered. So I would say, yeah, so there's Mia, which is obviously one of Emma Stone's roles, and then obviously I also really like, so then obviously Bella Baxter. And then there's also, I guess, there's that role of hers, The Favorite, but I haven't watched that because you know exactly I started watching The Favorite, and I don't know why I hadn't finished it, but I just didn't get the time to. And I also want to watch Begonia as well. That obviously came out last year, but I want to watch Begonia as well. And then obviously there is Cruella and The Amazing Spider-Man and Easy A and Kinds of Kindness as well. I started that film as well and I never finished it. And also The Help and Zombieland. Oh yeah, and Crazy Stupid Love. And also she's just got so many um do you know what I mean? Like Emma Stone has so many bangers. Like she is somebody with like a lot of films on her belt. But I just do have to say that I feel Bella Baxter is her most unique one. Just in the way that Bella Baxter's a very complex character. So it's like, you know, that's the thing. Like, you know, I could say, oh yeah, I could say Easy A, I could say Mia, I could say Cruella. Like, do you know what I mean? I could say all of those. But Bella Baxter, there's a lot needed to play a character like Bella Baxter. Like, obviously, I think Bella Baxter reminds me of, you know, say Jacob Elordi in Frankenstein. And I keep thinking about Jacob Elordi's, like, I keep thinking about him as Frankenstein, a lot of the time, like, as the creature. Just because, I mean, it takes a lot to have to play a character who, like, you know, is a very unique being. You know what I mean? Like, not a, not a human being, but you know what I mean? But somebody who is like otherworldly, like, you know what I mean? Like even Bella Baxter's otherworldly as well, you know. She had the brain of an infant put inside of her. So you know what I mean? So I'm like, when people have to play characters like that, I find it very interesting and it says a lot about them as actors slash actresses. Like, you know what I mean? We could see you play any other, you know, any other role. Do you know what I mean? Like Emma being Mia, who's a singer and like is a struggling artist. That's all well and good, right? But for you to be able to, I guess, play a role where it's like, you know, you have to like walk funny, you have to like act in the way that we want to believe that you could generally be like not of this planet. You know, we really want to say that, okay, this role is actually believable. And I think that's the way all actors go into their roles anyways. Like when they have to do roles that feel, you know, outside the box, they generally do have to make it, you know, seem very believable to us. And I do think that yeah, somebody like Jacob and then Emma in this, I do feel like they both were able to do that. Like it's the way that, you know, Jacob had such like slowed speech. Bella would like walk around like she was a duck, but obviously she had to walk around like a duck because she was an a child in an adult body. And like obviously that's probably why I found the film so, I guess, so I was gonna say so in enhancing in enchanting enchanting. I found the film enchanting in the way of um like, yeah, she's an adult, but then she's not an adult. And like you would expect that she was, but obviously when you find out her whole entire story, it's like, oh wow, she generally, she had a traumatic experience, and then obviously Willem Dafoe's character saved her by putting the infant brain in her head. And then also it's like, I guess what also is exciting to me about Poor Things is like obviously having that brain, but then coming to terms with what the world is really like. And I do think that very much is the human experience anyways. Like in having to I guess, yeah, having to understand like what life is, or even how humanity works. Do you know what I mean? Like that is what's so amazing about this film. It's very strange because obviously when I saw the Poor Things in the cinema, like it was so crazy. And also, I don't know if it's just me, but I also find it so weird when you're in the cinema and you're watching like inappropriate scenes with other people. Like it's obviously the weirdest thing ever, but it's like I know it's a movie, but it still feels weird. Like you're in a room full of strangers and you guys are watching the most weirdest scene ever. And that was like exactly, that was the entirety of Poor Things. And I think that's why it didn't sit well with audience members. Like I remember people leaving when I was watching it, and I don't know if they were, that's what I mean. Sometimes when people leave, you don't know if they're leaving because they hate the film, or they're leaving because of, say of like an emergency, for instance. Because generally, I guess when people leave, I generally always think it's, one of two options. Like, obviously, like I said, it's either they hate it or they obviously have something else that they need, that they need to go to. Do you know what I mean? Like, say, I don't know, they need to pick their child up from school and they're running late, but, they were in the cinema. So then, do you know what I mean? It's like they kind of forgot that they needed to go. But that's what I mean. So it's just either that. And I do think it, like, when people were leaving, that's what I mean. I assumed, oh, maybe they hated the movie, but I think also, as I said, like I said, it could be either two options. And I do think you don't want to think that though anyways. When you're in the cinema and people are leaving, you don't want to think anyways that, oh yeah, these people hate it. Like, why would anyone want to think that? Well, like, I'm trying to enjoy the film. I'm trying to enjoy the movie and get lost in it. Like, usually how the ads say, get lost in it, turn your phones off and relax. You know what I mean? So you're thinking about that. You're not thinking, oh yeah, these people are leaving, maybe the movie sucks. But no, like this is my whole thing. But I thought that, but then of course when I was watching the movie, I was generally thinking, and then I guess the scene when people were leaving, I was also thinking like, oh yeah, maybe this is not their cup of tea. Because this is the thing, with Poor Things, I do feel like it probably is a cup of tea film. Like, you know what I mean? Either you want to sip it or you don't. Like, it really is that. But I can't explain it because I just feel like maybe Poor Things is supposed to be a film for like, for the weirdos, for the eccentric people. Like, I don't know, like eccentric, like that word anyways. I'm like, when you think of the word eccentric, I'm just like, yeah, sometimes it feels a bit like a dirty label, but I'm just like, when I say eccentric, I just mean the people who view life in such a way. And like, I think also, I guess people who watch movies and although they feel uncomfortable, they're fine with that uncomfiness. Do you know what I mean? Like, I meant people who will know that, but they will also be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's hard to explain, but generally that's the best way that I can probably word it, because I obviously, even I felt like that in the Poor Things movie, but I do think it's a very, again, this is like, it's like you're talking about a movie and you almost feel like you're biased. Like, yeah, again, this is a very extraordinary film. So I'm generally like, when I'm saying like, oh yeah, um like that's why, if you didn't enjoy it, then it's like, yeah. But I don't want to do all of that, because I don't think it says anything about anyone. You know what I mean? Like, as in, when someone doesn't like a movie, it's not like, oh, it just like, again, people will say, oh yeah, if you didn't get this movie, you lack intelligence. People like to do all of that stuff from the film community, but I don't think any of that stuff is really necessary. Like, it's like, again, as I said, I spoke about it being a cup of tea thing, and I think we should all have that kind of mindset anyways, because yes, if you don't like a film, it's just not your cup of tea, but it doesn't automatically mean that it's bad, and as I said with like Poor Things, I don't think Poor Things is a bad movie, even though when I was obviously researching before I even started like recording it, I obviously saw this thing that said that there's obviously a controversy with this film that says that that people were saying that the film is sexist and exploitative, and that its sex scenes present troubling consent issues. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like they were also saying that as well, or I guess that was the discourse around the film at the time. But I do think, away from all of that anyways, like, you have to think about what Poor Things is about, and how obviously Bella experiences all stages of life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's weird, because I guess that's why it can be a hard film to wrap your head around. But I meant, she obviously explores, being an infant, being a child, being a teenager, and then reaching adulthood all the way at the end, in the whole span of the whole movie. And that can just be a bit hard to, I guess, sit with, and even, I guess, understand. And then I guess people would say, with the consent issues, they're like, if she's supposed to be if she's supposed to be a child in an adult body, how is she able to, like, I guess, go around making these choices? And I can see how that would be difficult to comprehend. But I also feel like I said, because she's exploring all life stages at once, I do feel like that's why she's able to make these choices, because she's having to understand life at, like, 180 miles an hour, or just like an extreme quick run time. You know what I mean? When that's not how life goes. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, as people anyways, we are semi, I guess, eased into life in the way that, like, we are born, we learn to walk, we learn to eat, and we do learn all this stuff, right? And then obviously when we're children, we still do all those kinds of stuff. But then, of course, when we're thrown into, say, into like teenage / young adult, when we're thrown into those stuff, like, of course, we are still, as I said, we still are coaxed into and eased into it, because we don't know anything what awaits us at those moments. Because it's very interesting, like, when children will come to you and be like, what is adulthood like? I think it's very interesting when children do that, by the way. But I'm just like, because you can't tell them, because, you know what I mean? You don't really know. And then you kind of also want them to be able to see it for themselves, and I just mean in the way that no one knows what awaits them next. But I just think what I'm saying is that, like, Poor Things is very much of a roller coaster movie. And, like, I don't think that, I don't think life is a roller coaster. Like, if it is, because that's what I mean, sometimes we all sometimes think life is a roller coaster, but I do think that if it is a roller coaster, it's a very slow one, though, anyway. Like, it could possibly be one, but a very slow one, whereas, like, Bella is told all of these things, and like she has to come to terms with what she wants to do about them. Like, I guess like one scene that stood out to me in the whole entire film was obviously, yes, when Bella realized she saw people suffering and she didn't know what to do about it. Like, I thought that scene in specific was probably one of the greatest, and I think probably one of the ones that stayed with me the most anyways. Like, aside from just everything, because that film is very much, as I said, roller coaster, and it's like very hilarious in moments as well, because obviously it's supposed to be a dark comedy, so obviously, you know, there's hints of where, you know, there's moments where you can laugh and relax and stuff like that. But I do think that that scene in specific was obviously just like the strongest. Like, she was obviously really struck with it and very heartbroken, and it's generally what us as people do feel like when we see people suffering and we can't do anything about it. Do you know what I mean? And like, she really just didn't know how to accept that. Like, a lot of us usually don't. See, I've just found this on Google that says, yes, Poor Things is widely considered a very good, even masterpiece level film, praised for its originality, stunning visuals, bold themes, feminism, liberations, and self-discovery, dark humors, and especially exceptional performances. And then, however, its extreme weirdness, explicit content, and unique style make it polarizing, with some viewers finding it uncomfortable, too long, or even missing its mark. But you know what's so interesting to me is because I generally do think, as I said, like, about the uncomfortableness, I do think that, you know, sex scenes in any movie, a lot of the time, I generally, movie and show, actually, sorry, I just want to specify, I'm just like, yes, either or, they can be very uncomfortable. I mean, like, I've always thought that. Okay, obviously, yes, I'm about to reference, so I do think that, like, you know, something like Skins and Euphoria. I've obviously been watching Skins right now, so I just want to throw that in there. I'm watching Skins right now, and I do think that, you know, those scenes are just like, sex scenes all the time are very uncomfortable. But it's like, sometimes I know that people say that, like, and I do think, okay, this is an argument, I guess, that can connect to Poor Things, you know, that uncomfortable sex scenes obviously are pivotal to the storyline. It's not to say that, because, you know what, people have been talking about, people have been talking about His and Hers, and how obviously people like to use SA as a way, like, as a weaponized tool, or they just want to throw it in shows, which of course I don't think that they should do. I 100% agree with that, because obviously it's sometimes not, like, it's not necessary all of the time, and you know, and I think, again, if they want it to be in the storyline, you know, that's the thing, there's always a way of doing things anyway. So I think if they want it to be in there, there's a way that they can do it without making it too too graphic, because obviously everyone's like, you know, it can be triggering for people, and that's the thing. Like, I think people should always make sure to say, you know, again, like, this is the thing, people are supposed to do the warning thing. So to do the warning thing and say, oh yeah, there's gonna be a potential scene, and then that's when people are able to say, oh yeah, they can consent to not wanting to watch the scene. But like, a lot of the time, it's sometimes hard to, I guess, in uncomfortable sex scenes, in being able to choose to leave or not. Because this is the thing, and again, what my whole point is as somebody who did enjoy Poor Things, right? We're like, oh, shocker, joking, because I know that people did also like the film. But like, obviously, as someone who did, I do think that, yes, they were uncomfortable, and I did say that earlier. They were uncomfortable, and they were quite long, like, generally. But I obviously do think that it really is a general thing. Like, I'm just saying, there's no way that you are going to be comfortable in those moments, you know, not unless, because I always think as well, when I'm watching those kinds of scenes anyways, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should just fast forward, you know, all those things. And you know what I mean? And I guess in a movie, like, what's it called, when you're in a theater or cinema, you can't skip past the scene, so obviously there's no choice there. Um, but like, it's still like okay, even if you can, will you? Do you know what I mean? I don't know, because I sometimes do, as I said before, it's like these scenes are meant to be I guess powerful. And also in this movie, anyways, like I'm saying, in this movie it's supposed to be powerful because it's supposed to be about, like, obviously, like it said what did it say? Self-discovery. So, and obviously like liberation. And I guess yeah, Bella being able to have the choice over her body and what she does with it as well. Like, again, with the sex scene thing, and obviously I was talking about Skins. I do think that, like, yeah, with Skins, and I'm finding that as of late, I do think that, like, yeah, like, my thing is with Skins anyways, is I feel like a lot of theirs are super, like, unnecessary. Sometimes I can understand when like, yeah, when a sex scene is necessary. And I'll say, like, with hidden with with speech marks, because obviously, yeah, you guys can't see me, but I meant, like, with speech marks, I'm like, yes, some are necessary, but like, I do think with Skins anyways, I do think that a lot of the time it's unnecessary. And people have the same view, I feel, with Euphoria as well, because obviously Euphoria does it in such I don't even know, like, I think, because when I think about Skins versus Euphoria, I'm like, they do it Euphoria does it more in such a graphic way, I feel. Skins doesn't do it in that much of a graphic way. Like, again, there's nudity and all that stuff, and of course they do last for, a majority, like a decent amount of time. But I'm saying like I feel like with Euphoria, they're the ones that do it quite, like, do it quite badly, I mean. And I think that's, like, obviously me saying with the, like, Skins and Euphoria and those stuff, I'm saying, like, I can understand with people having problems with it in Poor Things. But a lot of the stuff I'm seeing on here, though, actually is obviously stuff that I'm already bringing up. So obviously it says Emma Stone's performance may call her portrayal of Bella Baxter the best of her career, describing it as fearless, raw, and memorizing. A unique vision that Yorgos creates a twisted fairy tale world with incredibly painterly sets and costumes. Like, honestly, yeah, but I'm gonna circle back. So yeah, bold themes, explores female empowerment, sexual liberation, and social norms in a frank and unconventional way. Humor and heart, despite its strangeness, is described as dense, with both hilarious moments and genuine heart. And artistic achievement pays for its creativity, technical brilliance, and originality. Like, honestly, so okay, I'm gonna touch on the originality thing, and then I'm gonna go back to that point that I just made before. I do think exactly the originality thing, like, there's never been a story like Bella Baxter before. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was why I was saying earlier about how the movie feels, and how it's so intense, and how it's the whole thing from infant to adulthood all the way through. I think that's amazing. Like, and I do think movies that make it hard for you to turn away are, do you know what I mean? Those movies are amazing, and I feel like they are, like, one of my favorites, if anything. It's crazy because, as I said about the uncomfortableness, I was like, yeah, that is very true, and it very is very much so. But it's like, it's about still sticking with the rest of the story anyways. And I think that, again, right, there's something about, as I said, about being glued. And I guess even if you are uncomfortable, it's still hard for you to, like, move. It's very much like, okay, it's very much like, yes, watching a horror movie. And I think I saw this on Google, actually, that said, is Poor Things a horror movie? And I was thinking, like, no. I mean, I guess maybe, I mean, in the way that, there are, like, I guess, horrific dark scenes. But like I said earlier, I would say the horrific dark scene was probably that main one, though. Like, the one where she sees people struggling. That one, for me, it probably would have been the most horrific. And I guess, yeah, because then if you're asking me, yes, was all the sexual, like, like, were those the majority of them, but no, because I guess when I look back on the story, I'm not really focusing on that. Of course, like it's a factor, and you should definitely mention it. Like that's what I mean. Again, if it's like, oh yeah, I'm talking about a movie, which obviously I'm doing right now, and I would be like recommending it, it'd be like, yes, I would mention those things, but again, I wouldn't like make it pull away from what the movie is actually about. It's like how people always hate or talk about Bones and All, and they say because Bones and All is about cannibalism, they find it really hard to like, sit with it and watch it. And then I guess it's hard because, yes, again, see, this is Bones and All. It's good that I mentioned Bones and All right now, actually, because again, Bones and All, I guess, is another sibling in like uncomfortable movies. um you know Again, it's a relative in comfortable movies, in the genre of uncomfortable movies, and there's a lot of them out there if we think about it. Anyways, there's actually so many. I think that I do again, like I was saying about the scenes in this movie, I do struggle with those kind of, grotesques or body horror. Like this is why, like, I think a movie that I have an example that I haven't watched yet is The Substance, right? Obviously with Margaret and Demi Moore. And I obviously saw how popular that film was and how everyone was talking about it. But again, I didn't watch it because I did hear about its body horror. And then also another film as well in specific was, I think, also Titan. Yeah, and I think that I've heard that that also is very yeah, very graphic. But I just think, again, this is why I have to keep going back to the cup of tea thing. I keep going back to the cup of tea thing, and then maybe does it sound hypocritical? I don't know. You tell me. Like you're listening, you would know. But like it's like I do think that there's some things that you can deal with and some that you can't. So it's a very coin flip scenario. Like, you know what I mean? It's not fixed. Some things you will sit with, other things you will not. And it just depends. It's just and I do think, again, like how what I read about the what was it? About, again, so yeah, back to the unique vision thing. I do think, again, like that also helps to not deter you. I mean, because Poor Things is such a very visually like appealing film, and we all know what visually appealing films look like. Like, it's in black and white for like I guess half of it. Like, I guess in the very beginning and like in some middle bits, and then I guess it's black and white when Bella's inside her home, and then I guess when she goes out into the big wild world, then it's colored. You know what I mean? And I do think that's a very good switch to have anyways. See, a bit of artistic vision, and we love artistic vision in films, but like, so it's supposed to be, a change in environment. She's able to, yeah, come out there and now see the world in color. Do you know what I mean? After having just been boxed into her environment because she wasn't allowed to leave. And because, well, obviously, yeah, God, which was obviously Willem Dafoe's character, he wanted to keep her in there as a way to protect her. Bit like, again, bit like I guess Tangled and Gothel, but I don't really think, I use that comparison, but it's not really the same, seeing as obviously Gothel was taking advantage of, yes, of Rapunzel, but like obviously I just mean in the way that, Gothel also didn't want to send Rapunzel out of there because of how people would perceive, how people would perceive Rapunzel. Do you know what I mean? The girl with the long hair, like her hair's really long, and then it also does really glowing stuff, and people would find that weird. Do you know what I mean? But then I feel like that's why God had this, this overprotectiveness that he had for Bella, because of course she would be seen as a very like unique being. It's also like I guess there was the scene in the movie where he was like, "Oh, we can't go and get ice cream because people are afraid of me." And then obviously Bella was like, "I want ice cream now." And then obviously she had like a tantrum, and it was so funny. And I think it's funny because of course when we look at her, she's an adult, but then we forget that she has a child brain. So it's very like that's what I mean. This is what I mean. So this is why there's some kind of moments where you can laugh at it because we're like, oh, she's having a tantrum, but like it looks weird to us because she's not actually a child. She's like, because she's actually a grown woman like attacking a man. But like of course, like, she obviously wanted ice cream, but she couldn't get it. And then I just mean it's like, yeah, locking them up. And then it's like, again, when I said Gothel and Rapunzel, it's again like Frankenstein and the creature. Do you get what I mean? The creature comes out there and he realizes the world is not as friendly. Like, yeah, not as friendly, and they don't like the weird and unusual. Do you know what I mean? Even though I don't even feel like, when I'm talking about that theme, I don't feel like that was really shown much in Poor Things anyways, because I felt like when Bella went out into the world, people very much so were like, yeah, they were very open to her, I mean. So I don't really feel like she was rejected by society, if that makes sense. I didn't really feel that to me, because in the way she came out there and like, she was dancing in ballrooms and like, do you know what I mean? She was dancing in ballrooms and obviously engaging with men and like just living her life. You know what I mean? She was just living her life. And I was like, really, I don't really feel like, people were making fun of her in the way that most of the times when we see this in film, like the whole idea of what a monster is and like what a monster looks like. So I don't really feel like Bella had that like that much, but I do think it's just because like God, obviously he was having that himself. I mean, so it was more like, I guess he was experiencing that, so he obviously wanted Bella to stay in that experience with him. And there's nothing wrong with that, do you know what I mean? Because I do think that's what I'm saying. When you are rejected by society, it can be very lonely and isolating. So of course you would want somebody else to stay with you and yeah, be there for you in that isolation. And then I think it says on Google that the verdict is, if you enjoy surreal, unconventional, visually rich, and thematically bold films without standout acting, Poor Things is considered a must-see. If you prefer straightforward narratives or are sensitive to explicit content, you might find it challenging. And oh my gosh, like, again, and I feel like Willem Dafoe's character, which obviously I didn't even touch on yet, but now that we are here now, I really loved his yeah, the makeup that they put on him, like the prosthetics. Like, I thought that was all really amazing. I really love prosthetics anyways. Like, I meant when you see it in media, like, I think it's really great in the way that a person can transform into something, entirely different. Like, of course, Emma Stone didn't even need much prosthetics in this film anyways, because she obviously was basically just, yeah, she was basically just herself, just, I mean, like, with long hair, and like that's it. I just mean they didn't really need to do much tweaking to her. But like, obviously with Willem, like, yeah, they had to completely customize his whole entire face. And again, I think also his role in this, like, again, that probably would be another one of my favorites as well. But I feel like his recent works, I guess, because, well, Poor Things is one of his recent works anyway, seeing as obviously it did come out in 2023. But I would say like this, and obviously also Nosferatu, those two would probably be my main two favorites that he's done like so far. Do you know what I mean? It's so crazy because I hope that, it's so funny, like, I hope he never retires. He probably will, but I generally don't, because he's just such a great actor. And the fact of the matter is that I guess Yeah, in a way, you feel like like you've grown up with Willem just in the way that he was in the Spider-Man films. So it does kind of feel like that. And I was watching that old film that he was in, Platoon, and I was just like, wow, like William really is he is a legend, I meant, in Hollywood. And I was like, wow, like he shouldn't be able to like or not even like I say it like, oh yeah, like he's not allowed, but I just mean like he's very treasured, and I think he should continue to do it as long as he can do it, like every time how I think about Miyazaki as well, because I'm generally always like, if Miyazaki can keep making films and like his health, he's in good health, I said, yeah, like keep doing that. If you're not, then that's fine, like you can actually stop. But if you don't have any other reason like why you can't do it, like you should definitely keep doing it. To be honest, now we've reached actually other. So this is where obviously, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that thing where obviously I do Letterboxd reviews. You guys know how it goes. I'm gonna look at Letterboxd reviews, but also now I've reached other, where I'm just gonna talk about other stuff. Obviously, as I said, I like Willem's performance in this film. Obviously Mark Ruffalo's as well, because again, Mark Ruffalo, I feel like he's so interesting to me. I mean, as an actor, because you do really feel like, yeah, like it's interesting because I feel like sometimes he gets typecasted, but then maybe not. Like it's interesting, like when he was in 13 going on 30, and that was very much like, very out there. Like I guess people were saying exactly that he wouldn't be the classic rom-com type, but he did that well. I was very surprised, and I think even he said something about that at the time, because obviously he was saying how, I guess people weren't expecting him to be in a movie like that. And then I was just like, why? Like, Mark, yeah, we said, yeah, young Mark Ruffalo, he was great. He was in his prime. And I thought he was so fantastic in that film. Also, this film introduced me to Rami Youssef. I'm like, do you know what I mean? I'm so grateful. I'm not even joking, but I mean, like, I didn't know who Rami Youssef was before Poor Things. And then obviously, I think, yeah, after Poor Things, I went on a deep dive, like as you do. I went on a deep dive about Rami Youssef, and obviously I found out that he was obviously, yeah, he's a comedian, and also he's also I think he's a producer, or like producer slash director, because obviously he worked on an episode of The Bear, and I didn't know that, you know what I mean? But I think it's always good to do that, you find an actor, and then really you just dive into them and like who they are, because why not? Like we all have 24 hours in a day, like what are you doing? I was suddenly like, I need to find out more about Rami, and I was just like, yeah, he's so cool. And I think also, I did watch his, yes, I watched his special. I think it was called, oh, I forget what his, oh yeah, Rami Youssef More Feeling. So that obviously came out in 2024, and I really enjoyed that special, because again, like I think comedians, like, they're all so different. But I mean, comedian, my favorite type of comedian is somebody who can tell a good joke without having to be offensive. And I say that every single time, because I'm just like, I hate a comedian who goes for the easy target, or just, the easy shot joke, because we're like, you could do so much better, but you're deciding to be lazy, like you're deciding to be lazy, and that's really weird. Like you could be doing so much better. And that's what I'm saying. Like if people were to say, like, okay, I'll give that to you guys now, actually. Even like if people would say, yeah, Shan, who's your get to know me comedians, I would say Rami Youssef, I would say Marcelo Hernandez, I would probably also say, hold on a second, I would say John Mulaney, and also, because that's three. So basically I need two more. Yeah, wait, okay. So okay, I said John, I said Marcelo, and Rami. Then also, of course I really like yeah, Russell. Yes, I like Russell, of course, because okay, as a British girly, I grew up on I grew up on Russell. So yes, yeah. So Russell Howard, and then also Rachel Snow. Because I was like, oh, is Rachel not a comedian? And then obviously I searched that she is a comedian, and she's very funny. So there we go. And as I said, it's about being funny, but like I guess being funny with purpose. Do you know what I mean? Not just like making uh boring jokes. Like I think I've always said this, like it's like people like Dave Chappelle, who makes jokes about, like vulnerable people, or like they'll just take the easy pathway, and it's like, why? Like it's like, why? I just mean there's so much more. And I think exactly, when a person is generally funny than a person who's trying to be funny. I'm like, there's really a distinction. And if I can tell that you're trying to be funny, I'm just gonna get annoyed. Um, so that's my whole thing. Oh, lastly, of course, I love that they made Bella a lesbian. That was gorgeous and it was very lovely. Um, I guess because, she just wanted to explore her identity. And that's why I do think that layer in the movie was just very interesting, because it's like, yeah, she really wanted to be a free spirit. And it's just like, she didn't want to just, yeah, just say what society says to you, which is just, yes, be with men. And then she was also doing that whole prostitute business, and she was obviously, yeah, she was with men 24/7 of her day, like all day, all night. So it's really, she was just tired of them. Do you know what I mean? And then she obviously got to experience both, which again, I just think is a great way to live your life. I mean, just because, yes, it's good to be open-minded, but like, you can be closed if, do you know what I mean? If you're like, because I just mean, we're all different people, but I just meant I really liked that layer of the film anyways. And anyways, yeah, lastly, anyways, before we move on to Letterboxd reviews, how many Oscars did Poor Things win? 4. Poor Things won the Golden Lion at the 80th Venice International Film Festival, and at the 96th Academy Awards, it received 11 nominations, including Best Picture, and won 4 awards, including Best Actress for Stone. And that's on period. Yeah. I feel like after consideration, I'm talking about this for so long, like I would love if Poor Things was in my top 4, but I really don't like to change my top 4 all that often, although I am open on that now. Like I am more open about changing my top 4, but I've made it a thing now that I only change it at the end of every year. Because that's fine. And then I also want to like make sure that I keep one of the films from the last year, because it just has to be that way. I just don't like, I think I find it really hard, I think anyways, I'm someone who doesn't like change in general, but then I'm just like, I think with my top 4, like when you do a top 4, when you first start Letterboxd, it just feels very vital to you. And I do think it is a very much sealing, like a binding vow. It does really feel like that. Like when I write, it's like when you write down your name on a piece of paper, that is what my top 4 feels like. I really feel very strongly in it, and that's generally why I don't like changing it. But I do think that sometimes when you see a really life-changing movie, when you see a life-changing movie, it's so hard and it really itches at you. That's why, again, for example, of course, yeah, last year I changed my top 4, and I changed I changed obviously like most of it, and then obviously I added what's it called, K-pop Demon Hunters. And of course, as I said to you guys, which is now my rule, I left one film from my last top 4, which is obviously Howl's Moving Castle. But it's going to be really hard for me to take Howl's Moving Castle out, because generally Howl's Moving Castle is like, yeah, it's one of my favorite films, and I watch it like I used to watch Howl's Moving Castle every single year, at the end of every year as well. But like that was just because it was just tradition. I stopped doing that though, because again, I think I might have told you guys this before, but I just mean like I find it, I get so comfortable in rewatching old films all the time, but it's not good to live your life like that, because You won't watch anything new, if that makes sense. You won't let yourself be introduced to new things. And like that's not a good way to live. And okay, obviously before I get onto the reviews that we find, obviously I've watched it twice, like I said earlier, and obviously I've reviewed it 5 stars both times. And that's what I mean. I think it's very interesting though when when you rewatch a film and like obviously your perspective on it changes. But at least I can say with Poor Things, I watched it both times and both times were great. And like obviously both times nothing changed. But I think I do, as I said, I do think it's interesting when your mind does change on it though. Like that's very interesting. Like imagine if you really watched something one time and you really liked it and then the second time you actually disliked it. And then you're like, what did I like about it the first time that I don't like now? It's very interesting. You know what? One example I could say what I just said for would probably be Grease, and that might shock people, but like I just mean like when I first watched Grease when I was younger, of course, you know, I got roped up in all the I got roped up in all the songs and everything, and like that is very much that's easy to do in a musical anyway. Like that's literally what we're here for. But like it's so easy to do that. But I'm just saying like when I've revisited it like a few times over the past and like as an adult, I've been like, well, I don't understand why like Johnny was so surprised that like Sandy would leave him in the middle of a what's it? In a car park or whatever, that left him there, but when he sprung himself onto her. And the whole thing, anyways, the whole thing about Grease is like, yeah, she changes for him, and we're like, you could have just liked her the way that she was. And the funny thing is, you did like her the way she was when you met her. So we were like, that's what I mean. The film's very weird. And I don't like it when films, you know, sometimes are there and it's like they have these messages, but then they feel like very subtle messages. Like, oh yeah, you should definitely change yourself for a man. And like, you also shouldn't be a prude about it either. Like that's what I mean. They were making us think that with Sandy. They were like, oh, like, you know, she wants to change because, you know, she doesn't smoke and she doesn't do all this stuff. But we're like, can't she just be who she is? Shouldn't that be okay? Can't we embrace who we are as people? Or like, oh, we actually can't. I was like, that's the thing. Like sometimes movies make you think that, and I think that's very strange. So I guess my perspective on Grease has changed over the years. So I thought I'd share that with you all. This is a very good review. This says Barbie, 2023, but for mentally ill people. Yes, exactly. And then someone says, Bella, where the hell have you been, locker? Exactly. Twilight. And then it says they hate to see a bitch with childlike wonder. Right, exactly. Just because she wants to live carelessly, like, what's wrong with that? They want her to be tied down. And then this review says, I saw someone refer to this as a female version of Frankenstein, which is funny because Frankenstein was written by a brilliant woman, and this was quite obviously written by a man, which is so true because this is what I'm saying, guys. The whole thing I was saying about the uncomfortable thing, that's why it very much makes sense because, what's it called? Because right, you can always tell when sex scenes in movies are very long when they're made by males. Especially like one example that I can think of right now is obviously The Handmaiden, and everyone talks about that because obviously it's directed by a male, and obviously like I like The Handmaiden, okay? That's the thing. I do like the film, but this is what I mean. You can just tell, and the way that it's done, that, you know, it is. Yeah, that you know that a man is behind it. You just do know, and it's just very obvious as well. Sorry, this review said, watch this with my mum with a sad face. Hold on, I need to look at the comments for this. Right? Sorry, all the comments for that review are all saying, oh my gosh, like, why would you do that? That is hilarious as well. I mean, because again, yes, it's just not a movie that you watch, I feel, with parents, with family. I think that's also another interesting topic that I find really fascinating. But movies that you will watch with families, that, you know what I mean? It's a very sticky subject, but I meant there's really not a lot of them that you will, but sometimes you can. I just mean obviously Poor Things is definitely not one of them, but I'm just saying like you can do it. I mean, like you literally can do it. It's just about choosing the right one. And obviously Poor Things is, yeah, like Poor Things is not that. After reading the reviews, actually, I'd be very interested to hear you guys' thoughts, because again, that's what I mean. Like Poor Things is a film that is very a mixed, yeah, mixed ball, mixed, yeah, just a mixed bag. I mean, that was the term I was looking for. But yeah, a mixed bag, because obviously when I was just reading them, like you have some of those that are like, oh yeah, Poor Things is good. Then you have some of those which are a bit like, Poor Things is like, it's not what's it? Feminine or feminist positive. Like I think that's a lot of the like I guess yeah, a lot of the reviews that I was just reading, obviously people saying that again, like it's just I guess maybe yeah, maybe a misogynoir film or something like that. But again, yeah, like I yeah, I didn't have any problems with that. And I think when I think about it, what does that, what does that say about me? But then also no. This is the thing. It can be so easy to do that in the film community anyways. Like you'll see that how people aren't enjoying a film that you are, and then you'll somehow doubt yourself because you're like, well, did they get the film and I didn't? And then I guess yeah. But I think for me, I don't know if I really was focusing on these other points that people are mentioning. I very much was focusing just again on, like human nature and I guess, experiencing different stages of life, and then also I guess reclaiming your voice as well. That's also what the ending gave for me as well. Reclaiming your voice. That was my main thing too. Because obviously she realized she had this husband who, wasn't a good man. And then like she obviously came to understand why she left him in the first place. Because obviously he was awful. So really I was like, yeah, that's very much why I thought it was like, yeah, very good. But again, yes, I now turn to you, the people, to say, yeah, what is it that you think about Poor Things? Or have you seen Poor Things? If you haven't, will you watch it? Thank you for watching. I mean, listening. And I will see you in the next one.